What is up, and welcome to the Conference Championship edition of Brett's Bets, produced by Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As you know, this is where we pick winners in a handful of college football matchups each week to prove our expertise. We use gambling spreads in terminology, but we don't condone gambling, particularly if it's not legal where you are, because we're not built for prison and neither are you. So without further ado, let me introduce my co-host for Brett's Bets, a man who is so good at picking games that we've had to conceal his identity. Bookies, college football experts, everybody is out to get him because he simply knows too much. So I can't tell you his name, but he does have several aliases. That's right. He's known as the Spartanburg Spread Beater, a.k.a. the Irmo Earner, a.k.a. the Columbia Coverer, a.k.a. the Florence Forecaster, a.k.a. the Atlanta Assassin with the sniper sight trained right on your bookie's chest. Originally from Landrum, a.k.a. L-Town, but he's not taking any L's this week. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the expert. Mr. Expert, how are you doing?
Well, I've been picking like shit, football and soccer. So, I figured since I'm apparently on my last legs here, like a Belgium team at the World Cup, maybe I'll give you a chance to pick along with me, and maybe you can take over the throne.
Oh, I'm honored. So, all right. So what do? We're picking the Power 5 conference championships this week because they're the only conferences that matter. So how about we do like a countdown, and then on 0, we announce who we're going to pick for each game.
3, 2, 1, pick. Correct?
3, 2, 1, pick.
Say it. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. All right. Well, let's get to it. In the Pac-12 championship, the number 11 Utah Utes are taking on the number 4 USC Trojans in a rematch of an incredible game that saw the Utes beat the Trojans, their only loss of the year. A win here sends USC to the college football playoff, probably cements the Heisman Trophy for Caleb Williams. Utah is 9-3. The Trojans are 11-1. Are you ready for the pick?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Trojans.
USC. Yep.
Okay.
All right, we agree on this one. So, like you said, earlier in the year, Utah wins, but a very strange ball game. Southern Cal, the defense isn't good, but I don't trust Utah's offense. They've seemed to have taken a step back this year. I don't trust them to really exploit them too terribly. And I'll tell you, I watched Caleb Williams last week when my ill-fated Notre Dame pick, and he is unbelievable. He is just absolutely unstoppable. Southern Cal's got more to play for. This is a no-brainer to me, and for it to be a less than a 3-point spread is just – I think they've got Southern Cal undervalued. This time of year, you kind of try to look for the teams that Vegas has undervalued because they're as smart as they are. They're very, very, very stubborn. When they put lines out on a team, when they put a power ranking on a team, it takes a lot for them to change their mind. And they, I guess because of Southern Cal's defense, Vegas doesn't really value Southern Cal that highly. And I think that's why we're getting such a small spread here. I think they should be, over 4 at least point favorite here.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the spread's 2.5. USC's favored. This one's Friday at 8 p.m. on Fox. But man, like that game last week, Caleb Williams, like you were saying, he just looks unstoppable. I bet I would be throwing up every week if I were a Sooner fan. Just like what could have been.
I've never seen we talk all the time about quarterbacks that when they scramble, but they keep their eyes downfield, they're looking for the big throw. They don't just take off and run. I've never seen a quarterback do it better than him. His eyes are always downfield when he's moving, and he's so quick. It's basically impossible to get him sacked. I'm never, until they run into Georgia eventually, I'm not betting against this team.
Yeah, and to the point about about Caleb like scrambling with his eyes downfield. He's gotten better at that since being at Oklahoma because that was a problem for him there. And he was always looking for like a home run ball where he's not doing that now. He's just making what the defense gives him. And he also, didn't he have like 3 rushing touchdowns last week too? Like even with doing that, he still has enough awareness of, okay, there's nothing there. I got to go. So.
And speaking of the run, they ran the ball very well on Notre Dame, which I did not expect. I thought Notre Dame was going to dominate both lines of scrimmage, and they ran it down their throats. And Utah, historically a good run defense, but this year they've been terrible. They've went to a 5-man front, which is like your last-ditch effort to try to stop the run. They've done that a lot this year, and they're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to you can't waste another guy on the defensive line. You've got to have him back against Caleb Williams. So against probably a 4-man front, I think Southern Cal is going to run the ball. We know Caleb's going to throw it. So I don't see how this spread's this small.
I don't think we could both be wrong. So let's move on to game number 2, the Big 12 championship. Number 10, Kansas State. Number 3, TCU, Saturday at noon on ABC. A win here would continue TCU's incredible run this year, send them to the college football playoff. They're favored by 2.5 as well. This was a 10-point victory for TCU earlier in the year. Kansas State is 9-3. TCU is 12-0. Are you ready to make the pick?
Yes.
Okay.
TCU.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot.
So, again, we're taking the team that Vegas undervalues. Clearly, their spreads have just been small all year, and they've just kept on covering them. They're 9-2 against the spread. I think that's the best mark in the entire country. So these teams played earlier. Like you said, TCU beat them by 10. Kansas State, I actually bet Kansas State that week. They were a small underdog, and they got up 17-0 in that game. Then their quarterback got hurt. Then that backup quarterback got hurt, and TCU come back. But that at the time was a purely situational play. TCU, as we like to say, had shot their load multiple weeks in a row. That was just an obvious spot for the letdown for them, and they basically had the letdown, but they still recovered from it and come back. In this spot, I don't see any letdown coming. I think it's another easy victory for TCU.
Yeah, I just don't know how you beat them. It's not that they don't have holes, but as Kansas State, I just don't think Kansas State has enough to hang with them. And man, I don't believe in Kansas State. I've seen enough in recent years from TCU to be like, okay, maybe. But I can't, like, Kansas State would have, like, Michael Bishop days in the late 90s, I think I'm just not, their track record, their history. I'm going purely off of that more so than even today. I just don't believe in Kansas State.
Yeah, they play solid defense. They run the ball well, but they don't really throw it. And I don't see how you can beat TCU without, getting in somewhat of a shootout and being able to throw it, go through the air. So, and Adrian Martinez, I think, is questionable for this game. So they may not have him again here. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know how this spread is as small as it is.
How many Martinez brothers have played in the Big 12? Has it just been one guy playing for 3 decades? Or
I think it is the same guy. Adrian, he played at Nebraska.
Jeez. All right. So TCU on that one. The SEC championship game, best conference in the world. Number 14, LSU taking on the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia headed back to the playoffs no matter what happens here, I believe. This one's Saturday at 4 p.m. on CBS. Georgia is favored by 17.5. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Georgia.
Yeah, massive spread, but they put the spread this high for a reason. Georgia is that good. We thought we were getting a pretty big spread versus Tennessee early in the year, and I took Tennessee over a touchdown. It didn't matter. Georgia wins easily. LSU's not as good as Tennessee. Georgia's just loaded. They're the new Alabama. I mean, that's all there is to it. We know how good their defense is. And, when I think about them, I think strong defense, and I think like competent offense. But their offense is number 7 in the country. I mean, yeah, like they're just a juggernaut. I mean, you may not think that because Stetson Bennett, he doesn't jump off the page at you. They really don't have that much on offense, like just a superstar that jumps out at you. But number 7 in the country, I mean, that doesn't lie. And yeah, they're just talent wise, they're just heads and leaps and bounds ahead of LSU.
Yep. And then I think this is the rare conference championship game letdown for LSU. I think coming off that loss when they thought that, we might be able to sneak into the playoff, maybe if we can win the championship game, I think that's not going to happen. I think they're not there yet. Kelly hadn't got his recruits in there, obviously. But I think they have a little bit of a letdown after that loss. I think Georgia probably blows the doors off them.
Yeah, they definitely lose some motivation. I mean, winning a conference title would still be a huge accomplishment in the first year, obviously. But yeah, there is a big drop in what they're playing for after that disaster last week, for sure.
Do you think the playoff is like caused the conference championship to go down in value?
Some of them. I mean, I guess that's like a person-to-person, team-to-team basis. But like, to me, the SEC is still so important. Like if South Carolina, when we eventually win our first SEC title, tears will be shed. I will go nuts. I don't care if the playoff comes after that or not. Like that, it's still the premier conference is still a big deal. But yeah, these other conference titles, I mean, it does seem just like another game to get to the playoffs.
Yeah. And unfortunate that Brian Kelly has had so much success in his first year. All right. The Big Ten Championship, my favorite conference, as you know, unranked Purdue taking on number 2 Michigan. Wolverines beat the hell out of Ohio State last week. This one is Saturday night, 8 p.m. on Fox. Michigan is favored by 16.5. All right, let's do this. Purdue. Yeah. Okay.
We've agreed on everyone. Okay. Good. I like Purdue. I've bet them a lot this year. I like their quarterback. They play pretty good run defense. I don't think they're going to win this straight up by any means, but getting that many points, I think Michigan potentially could have a letdown. That's just a massive, massive win last week to go into Ohio State and just beat the shit out of them. Like, that's the highest you can possibly get, So I think a letdown is maybe forthcoming here. The way to beat Purdue, like I said, is through the air. And despite what he did last week, I don't really trust the Michigan quarterback still. And I think Purdue's got enough to where they can score a few times, and I think they'll stick within that spread.
Yep, agree on the quarterback. Was it McCarthy from Michigan? That was the game of his life. And then with Blake Corum being hurt, they still have a solid run game, but he's so good, and he just didn't look good last week, doesn't look healthy. So I think, like you, Michigan still wins, but not by 16.5. All right. So far, 4 for 4. Impressive. The last game in this is a Power 5 conference, apparently. The ACC championship game, number 9 Clemson Tigers, playing for absolutely nothing after the South Carolina Gamecocks slammed the door shut on their college football playoff hopes last week, taking on number 23 North Carolina. Saturday night, 8 o'clock ABC. Tigers are favored by 7.5. Let's do it. I'm going to try to pick with my head, not my heart.
North Carolina.
Okay.
I honestly, I didn't know I until you said the spread, like, which I already knew. I still hadn't decided this one, but North Carolina isn't good at all. But what they can do is I think they've probably got, aside from Caleb Williams, the best quarterback in the country.
He's incredible.
And we know that Clemson's secondary is just ripe for the picking. So he's going to have his yards. And Clemson is they're going to get their yards too running the ball because North Carolina's run defense is just absolutely atrocious. So both teams are going to be able to move the ball, but as we saw, and this is one of my most hated, like, I don't know the term about college football. This thought that running the ball is the most important thing. You got to be able to run the ball. They preach this. I think we demonstrated last week when we beat Clemson. If you look at the stats, the total yards were similar. We couldn't run the ball a bit. We got all our yards through the air. It was the opposite for them. DJ was under 100 yards passing, but they did run the ball down our throats. Well, who won the game? And who should have won it by a hell of a lot more than they did? The team that threw the ball. So I would rather be able to throw the ball if I can only do one. And I think that's what North Carolina is going to be able to do. And as bad as their defense is, I don't think DJ is going to be able to throw on them. So, give me the team that can attack through the air, and and they're getting 7.5 points. So, and like you say, Clemson, I don't know. They tend to respond. I know in the past we've beat them, and they've still went on to win the ACC championship, really, because they don't play anybody in that title game. But, I kind of think they might bounce back and be motivated. But like you said, similar to LSU, they thought this was going to be a game to get them into the playoffs, and it's not anymore. So can they get up for it?
Yeah, I think this is a letdown game here for them. And also, I've been checking out some of the talk coming out of Clemson, and everyone is starting to turn on Dabo for sticking with DJ. And I love it. Like, the more I read, the more that I want to read. And it's just so much fun. And so I'm wanting to see how they can respond to that, because when was the last time they faced any real adversity as far as are we headed back to being the Clemson in Clemson? So I'm curious about that. I'm curious to see. He seems like a stubborn guy. And so I think he will dig his heels in with DJ, even though he was awful.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. But what I think, the backup quarterback's always the fan favorite, right? I don't think the guy behind him, Klubnik, I don't think he's any good. No. I think that not that Dabo's the sharpest knife in the drawer or anything, but I think he may be right that they're not going to get better by bringing him in. Like, he did come off the bench and save him against Syracuse, but that wasn't really anything he did. That was a spark, and the team was fired up and played better overall. But he's probably not better than DJ at this point. And DJ's certainly a better runner. So now,
I think he came in the Notre Dame game too.
Yeah, and threw one pass for a pick, and that was it.
Awful. So I think you're right. I don't think he's any good, but I don't know. I want to see what happens, particularly if they lose this game too. I think it's going to be panic time, even though still an incredible season. I don't understand, but expectations change, and I'm hoping it's the sign of the end.
Yeah, it's so funny how expectations can just get to a place, and you just feel like this is what we're supposed to have. I distinctly remember the Tommy Bowden days when they, if they won 8 games, they were ecstatic, like we are now. So yeah, it's crazy. I'm glad I didn't see it, but if Clemson had not fumbled that last punt at the very end of the game against us, do you think they'd have went to Klubnik at that point? I think they'd have still stuck with DJ.
Yeah, they would have stuck with DJ.
Yeah, because they would only had to move the ball 25, 30 yards. Thank God they fumbled. But anyway, I think it's got to do. You're right, Dabo's stubborn, all of that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the Klubnik's just not very good.
And you would think you let a guy stay in going. So this is why I think he would have stayed in for that last drive too if they hadn't fumbled. He was 8 for 27 up to that point anyways. If you haven't pulled him yet, then he's either got blackmail material on you or something. So I'm excited to pull for North Carolina.
Yeah, they got a chance. I mean, I'll definitely be watching it, definitely be pulling for them. They've been so bad down the stretch, though. They've lost, I think they've lost the last 2 games they played. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be entertaining because, like, they are. Drake May is going to get his yards for sure.
Yeah, he's incredible. So that will do it for the conference championship edition of Brett's Bets. We were 5 for 5 on matching. We will be back. We'll take a break, but we will be back for bowl season to make some picks there. But this has been fun.
Yeah, nice sober discussion. No theatrics. Oh, we forgot one game.
Oh.
10 o'clock Saturday morning, United States versus the Netherlands. United States plus 175 to advance. USA is the fucking tie-breaking pick.
There we go. Because I'm a big Netherlands guy myself, so
yes.
You got me.
Noted Dutchman.
So on behalf of Brett and the expert and the Netherlands, I am Brandon Silvers. We will see you in a couple of weeks.